Hello guys, this is Tarun from Testing Gyan. In our last video, we discussed about the basics of API. What is an API, its usage, what are its types and various classifications. In our today's video, we are going to learn how to test these APIs, that is what is API testing, what are the various HTTP response codes involved to test those APIs, and then the authentication types which are involved to authenticate to those various web requests. So let us start.
In our last video, we learned what is an API, which is simply a programming code governing the communication between different applications. We also learned that for web services, mainly this communication is happening on the principle of RPC, which is again a client-server communication. Now let us see what happens in this communication. In this communication, client try to access a particular server resource by sending a HTTP request, and on receiving this HTTP request, server sends back a response. So this is what API testing is, where we verify these responses. That is, the functionality which an API do is being verified with the help of response received from the server side. Now a software is mainly categorized in three layers. The first one is presentation layer, which is the front end, and this is where UI functional testing is done with the help of tools like Selenium. Then the middle layer is business layer, which is the most important layer as whole business logic is there, and this is where API testing comes into picture. And the final layer is database layer, and this layer mainly deals with the application data. Now as we have got the idea of API testing, now let us take a look at some of the advantages of API testing. The first advantage is early testing. As we know, API testing is done in business layer. That is, as soon as business logic is developed, we can verify the response against various resources, which is long before the UI testing itself. Okay. Then easy test maintenance. Easy test steps are created for API testing. Okay, not like UI testing steps which are very complex. These are simply request methods, sending the request and verifying the response. Okay, then because of all this, as we are doing the early testing, so the resolutions are also fast. So faster resolution is also one of the advantage, where as soon as we identify some issue in the request, we will report it and it will be resolved. Okay, and at last, as this is a early process, it increase the speed of our testing, and it also increase the coverage scope, as we are not just verifying the UI scenarios, we are also verifying their backend functionality. Now we know in API testing we mainly verify the response received from the request. But how we do that? Mainly we verify the response with the help of HTTP response codes. To every request sent from client, the server sends back the response codes, and these response codes help us to identify the behavior of API request. The shown table indicates various HTTP response codes, and every response code has its own significance. There are mainly 5 series of these response codes from 1 to 5. Series 1 response codes, which starts from 1, are mainly informational messages. Okay. Then the series 2 indicates the success, that is what we wanted to achieve by sending a HTTP request from client to server, it is being achieved. Okay. Then the series 3 is for redirection, that is some modification required in our request. For example, when we get 304 not modified, this response code simply indicates that there is no modification in the resource since the last request. Now after this, series 4 messages indicates the issue in the client side, that is there is some issue in the client side request, either you are using the wrong authentication type or there is something wrong with the request. Okay, so series 4 will indicate all the issues with respect to your client side. Okay, similarly we are having series 5, which indicates the issue at the server end. That is, for example, if you received 500, that issue indicates that there is something wrong with the server, maybe server is down or it's not working properly. Okay, so this was all about the HTTP response codes and their usage. Now let us try to understand the various authentication types involved in the API testing. Okay, As we know, API testing is done at the business layer, that is where applications business logic is present. So to avoid unwanted access to the APIs which are exposing this business logic, there are mainly 5 type of authentication method. Okay, the first one is basic authentication, where client is provided with a username and a password to access the resources at the server end. Okay, then the next way is bearer token. Okay, bearer token is a cryptic string or token and is provided to client to have access to the server resources. Okay, similarly we are having the API key, and in this case client is provided with the key which is known to a server. Okay, so this key may be generated based on the hardware combination and the IP data. Okay, and sometimes it is randomly generated. Okay, then the fourth way is OAuth 1, which is considered to be more secure because in this case no username and password is shared to access server resources, but instead a token is generated based on the information of client like client ID and client secret. Okay, the fifth way is OAuth 2, which is almost similar to OAuth 1, but it overcomes one of the limitation of OAuth 1. The access token generated in case of OAuth 1 is having a very long expiry period, that is it can go for a month, even for the years. Okay, but this is not an ideal case. We should not have the access tokens which are available for such a long time. So this limitation is overcome by OAuth 2 by introducing a refresh token along with the access token. Okay, so access token will only be valid till this refresh token is not expired. So this is OAuth 2. Now this was all about the various authentication methods, and also it was all about the basics of API testing. I hope you guys are able to understand. In case of any questions or query, please post over the video comments. We will try our best to answer those queries. Thank you.